guess we could get rolling tonight with our
go.
first guest. Let's get rolling with our first guest tonight. We've got Detroit guitar virtuoso, Mr. Sammy Boller. Sammy, man, thanks for coming on with us. How you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, man. Well, we're definitely gonna, get into talking about your brilliant debut solo record called "Kingdom of the Sun" that came out just past spring. But before that, why don't you just tell us what you've been up to, since this pandemic started? I mean, I hate asking these pandemic questions in a way. I'm kind of getting sick of them, but it's a reality, right? I mean, we got to do it. But I know you were one of the unfortunate ones, man, who happened to release your record just as this whole menace was starting, correct? If I recall.
Yeah, my record came out about a week before the first lockdown, so it was a little bit crazy, but yeah, it's just one of those things, man. It's been interesting. This is like my first summer home in quite a few years now, so it's been taking some adjusting.
Yeah.
But it's been all right, man. It's one of those things. Just everybody's in the same boat, and all musicians are just kind of trying to find different ways to perform and just keep going. So I've just been doing a lot of videos, a lot of shows like this. Just having fun.
Yeah, what else can you do, right? This is really kind of what you're left with, to do. But no, but thanks for coming on. Are you recording? Any? So what have you been doing? Obviously, since the pandemic, like you said, you've been doing these, doing videos. You're doing podcasts. Are you recording any new music? Are you going to do any live streams or COVID quarantine cover songs? What you got?
I've done a few live streams so far, especially when it first, like those first few weeks of quarantine when everybody was online doing the live stream. I did quite a few, and we did a show from the studio. The vinyl version of my album just came out like a month ago, so we did a show from the studio
very cool.
about a month ago. Yeah, that was really fun, man. That was really cool doing with the whole band.
Sure.
But yeah, I've been working on new music. I worked as like a session guitar player a lot here in Detroit, so I've been doing a lot of sessions, especially like the past couple months. The studio's been pretty busy, which is cool. But I have a new single coming out in a few weeks, which I'm excited about. We just cut it pretty recently.
Oh, awesome.
And yeah, I'm working on a new record too. So yeah, I think a lot of people right now are just working on music, either writing or finishing albums that maybe they've had on the back burner, or maybe they just haven't had time to finish. So
sure,
it's been fun, man. It's one of those things where you just kind of got to take it one day at a time. But that's being a musician anyway. It's a one day at a time thing. So
yeah, no, true, good point. Well, Kingdom of the Sun, man, it's your your debut solo record. It's a great listen. It's definitely quite a change too for you, going from sort of a traditional 4-piece hard rock band with your old outfit Citizen Zero to now becoming an instrumentalist with your own band. And the first thing I noticed was that the riffs and music overall in your solo band here is much heavier. I mean, you could definitely tell that despite the virtuosity of your playing, you're definitely a metalhead at heart. Am I correct on that?
Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, thanks for checking out the record. Yeah, I definitely grew up a metalhead, man, for sure.
Okay.
And I still am. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music, but yeah, with this, I'd never even attempted to do anything instrumental before. But after I got off the road with my old band, like almost 3 years ago now, I was just kind of looking for something new to do. Like I was kind of burned out on all the stuff I had been playing, So I started coming up with some new melodies and approaches to playing. And once I had a few ideas, I showed them to my friend Steve, who produced the album. He's like, man, you should really, really try to do this. Some of this is really cool. So that's when I kind of came up with the idea of trying to put a band around it and do a full record,
Yeah.
So
cool.
It's fun, man. Whenever you, as a musician, like you mentioned, Leland Sklar, first of all, that's awesome. He's gonna be on the show. That's amazing. He's like a hero of mine. He's awesome. But
yeah,
he's always been changing his whole career, and that's a big thing about being a musician or any type of artist. It's always trying to grow, always trying to find something new. So
sure. Yeah, no. And speaking of change, I mean, the thing about you going now from what you did with Citizen Zero now to being on your own and doing the instrumental circuits is you're now playing to a whole different audience and fan base than sort of the regular, radio rock one you had previously with your band. I mean, talk about it, the differences and challenges, going from one, that genre, and then all of a sudden going to the whole instrumentalist community, which is definitely a drastically, I think, different than what you obviously did with Citizen Zero. Much different audience.
It is a different thing for sure.
Yeah.
Like with Citizen Zero, I mean, I always kind of grew up as more of like a band type guitar player. You know, like what made me want to start playing guitar was Van Halen and the first Ozzy records and stuff like that, where the guitar playing was at the forefront, but it was still like with a singer. So for as far as like writing music. With a band, I was always more like a riff guy, and you think about the vocals, it's like a different type of composition. But as far as like the transition, like before the pandemic started, and my band now is playing shows just as a three-piece instrumental act, it was a really really fun challenge because trying to make a whole set interesting with just the guitar, and making the guitar the voice of the band. That's a really cool. I just am fascinated by it, and it's been a blast, because there's a little bit more room for like improvisation too, which is cool. But we definitely, I think a goal for us as well was, even though we're instrumental, is to still be able to play with like traditional rock bands, So that's what we were kind of starting to do before, obviously live shows shut down. But yeah, it's fun. It's a blast, man. I really love it so far. I can't wait to get back to playing, man. It's been a bummer. But everybody, that's what everybody's saying. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I want to expand on that a little bit because certainly I get it in the live setting. In the live setting, using the guitar as the quote unquote voice, opens the door for a lot of improv and a lot of jamming, and as long as your rhythm section can follow along with you, it makes it kind of easy. The other side of that, though, is I always envision that it's the reason we don't have more guys that do instrumental, solely. I mean, you name off Eric Johnson, Satriani, and Vi, and then you're reaching for guys. After that, there's really not many that do it. I've always thought it's because it's got to be harder to write music that way, to write focused material without a singer to almost follow along with. Is that how it was for you, or is it super easy to write for you?
That's a wonderful question, man. I wouldn't say it's more difficult. I would say it's definitely different, That's one thing I was talking when the record was getting mixed. It was mixed by a guy named David Bendith, who he comes from more of like a radio rock type background too. Like he's done a lot of he's done like Paramore and Bring Me the Horizon, stuff like that. But he's calm. He's going, dude, I'm getting these mixes done, and I feel like I feel like I'm not done because I'm so used to mixing, like getting the track going and then putting the vocals in,
Right.
But to me, I love it, because it's still like a collaborative thing, like I'm one of those people where if you're playing with a band, like I like playing with guys that really put their creative input in, just like when you're in a band and you're writing songs, it's like you're working it out, and, the drummer goes, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's kind of like the approach I tried to take with this as well. So really it's the same thing, except when it just comes time for the melody, I just try to find something that I really love on the guitar, to kind of bring it home, like what a singer would normally do.
Nice. Dude, I love how casually you throw David Bendith in there like he's just another studio guy. Meanwhile,
he's awesome, man.
He's his resume, if anybody wants to look up an amazing resume, that guy is amazing. And one of the I actually worked with him briefly, not as a musician because I stink, but as a as a kind of a consultant with a band called Picture Me Broken, which was Brooklyn Allman's band,
oh wow,
10 years ago, and he produced their album. So I got to chat with him a little bit, and that guy has insight for days, which I'm sure you're aware of. I mean, just listening to him talk about music is fascinating, man. It's for you as a musician and as somebody that's an accomplished musician. I've got to imagine working with somebody like him that has that kind of knowledge, does nothing but help you develop and grow not only individual songs, but as an artist in general. No,
big time. Yeah, big time. Dave's like you said, he's so knowledgeable and he was an artist before he became a producer. Like he had some hits in the 70s stuff as a guitar player and yeah, when it came time to when he kind of came into the album was done, and when he came in to mix it, he's awesome, man, because he was like the perfect person to do it, because not only is he a producer and a great mixer, but he's a guitar player too, and a really great guitar player. So yeah, we've just become good friends, man. Like we've worked on a couple things since the album came out together, and yeah, man, he's helped me out a lot. And that's kind of like the role of being even though he didn't produce my album, that is the role of like a producer. Like I'm really lucky. When I was 19 and I started playing with Citizen Zero, um, they were already working with like one of the best producers in Detroit. His name's Al Sutton,
Okay.
and he owns the studio that I work out now. But he's kind of like a guy in Detroit that's known for like finding young bands. Like he's the guy who discovered Greta Van Fleet initially a few years ago.
Okay.
And when I met him, he did Kid Rock's early record, so he was the one who kind of helped him get off the ground. But as like having a mentor like that, like he's helped me almost more than anybody, just to, teaching me how to record, teaching me how to, no, man, you don't want to do that there.
Right.
Sometimes like little things like that when you're really young, those can make a big difference.
No question, man.
Yeah, and I've seen Dave do that with a lot of artists too,
Sure.
even though I haven't known him as long.
Well, maybe you'll get there. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you're working with him now, he's going to put his clutches into you a little bit and help you right along, man.
He's awesome, man.
Yeah, he is.
Great.
Definitely is. Now, Sammy, obviously switching from traditional band to instrumental band, it's not only a change musically. I know that's the easy thing to say is that, okay, well, it's just one less guy and, you just go out and do your thing. But business-wise, I imagine anyway, that it's a completely different thing. I would imagine that there's a lot more looking at finding movies or TV scores to get your music into, as opposed to the traditional put out record, find gigs to play, go play shows. Have you A, thought about that, and B, have you been able to do that, or is the pandemic really putting the screws to all of that?
As far as like licensing, I know some of my friends that do that. It's been pretty tough during the pandemic. Like a lot of the stuff is shut down.
Sure.
I think for me, that's a great question too, man. Like the difference between like business wise, just being a solo guitarist compared to being in like a more traditional band.
Sure.
For me, like I feel really lucky because I learned so much. Like you learn so much from being in a band that's on the road and like has a record out and gets signed and stuff. Like I feel like a lot of the stuff I learned during those years with my previous band, I kind of try to apply to what I'm doing now, even though it is a different approach where it's like, we're not going to the radio stations at 7 a.m. and singing, after the gig, worn out.
Right.
I definitely am aspiring to kind of do like a hybrid thing where it's like, we still go on the road and we still open up for bands and we still tour. With rock and roll, man, it doesn't matter, instrumentally or whatever. Like with rock and roll, you really got to play out all the time, and that's how you get fans,
Sure.
But for me, I think with instrumental music now, a lot of it, at least with guitar, a lot of it's just more online, like on YouTube and Instagram and stuff. So yeah, I feel really lucky. Like I've had since the records come out, I've had some luck with some of that so far. So I'm just trying to keep it rolling. I'm just trying to do everything I can, just from here in Detroit, just from my apartment.
Sure, man. Yeah. I would, Sam, I just want to take you back a little bit to Citizen Zero. Cause I really felt that you guys really put out a really solid debut record.
Thanks,
and I know there's virtually, there's been, and no pun intended, there's been zero news out of the camp. I know it's a bad joke, but, but some, I mean, for, it looks like pretty much, I guess the band is pretty much done. It just shocked me because like I said, you guys really did put out a great, record. Did you guys, I mean, did the split happen with you guys? Did it have anything to do with the fact that, Wind Up, you guys were on Wind Up Records, and I know it folded, I believe, pretty much soon right after you guys released that record. Did that have anything to do with, maybe causing, what happened to the band, no longer being around, now?
Yeah, that's a great question too, man. Yeah, we had kind of a tough luck.
Yeah, you did.
Like
yeah.
when you're a young band and you work, like at least in our case, like we worked so hard to finally get a record deal,
Mhm.
And when you're kids and you get a record deal, you think, well, that's it, we did it,
You made it.
Like
yeah.
me and the drummer are celebrating, just hanging out, But yeah, unfortunately, like pretty soon after our record came out, they ended up getting pretty much shut down. They were bought out and then ended up folding. So we ended up on like with another record company,
Okay.
which was great, like because we figured, you know, our record cycle had just kind of started, so that kind of like allowed us to keep going and tour on the record, you know, which
Mhm.
we worked really hard on. We're really proud of, you know, and still am. Like
Yeah.
I still am proud of that album for sure.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, after that, it's just like just with other business stuff, you know, it's pretty hard. We just had some tough luck, you know,
Yeah.
and just with other stuff, you know, we ended up just we were gonna do another record with another label, but
Mhm.
yeah, we ended up breaking up soon after we had the demos for it. So a lot of it's
Yeah.
written, and we do have some pretty good demos. Somebody was asking me about that the other night, like if we ever would consider like putting out some of the demos we had written for the second
Mhm.
album, which I would do. I play with the drummer from Citizen Zero all the time,
Mhm.
and he's been working with me on some stuff now.
Oh, cool.
We were talking about that, like, man, we do it. You know, they're good sounding demos. They're not like we were still gonna go record it and with a producer and finish it. You know, more like a traditional record, but
Mhm.
you never know, man. I think some of it may see the light of day eventually.
Cool, man. Awesome. Yeah. Well, and speaking of, you were talking earlier about the business aspect of now being, an instrumental artist. How's your experience been with a smaller label like you're on now with Candy Rat Records? Because I mean, Wind Up was, at one point, Wind Up was like considered the largest independent label in the world.
It
When you
was,
were,
yeah.
yeah, when you were I mean, obviously bands like Creed, Evanescence, Finger 11. I mean, those are huge names. Do you find it more to your liking, having a bit more, freedom with your art, like with what you're doing now, compared to having, a bit more, say, financial and tour support, that bands get from a big label like you had on Wind Up? I mean, sometimes too. I stress the word sometimes. That doesn't always happen. But do you enjoy having more of the artistic freedom with what you're doing now, or is it, do you kind of maybe miss or wish you had that sort of also financial and tour support like you probably had with Wind Up?
That's another wonderful question. You guys really know. You guys really do your research, man. It's amazing. Uh, it's different. It's definitely different, but I feel really lucky with the label I'm working with now, Candy Rat Records.
Mhm.
It's been amazing. Like it's one of those things where you end up so close to the people that you work with, and they're been so supportive. You know,
Mhm.
I just feel really lucky to like kind of have another crack at it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's been awesome, and I think it's a little bit different now. Like even like you're saying, like with Wind Up, they were definitely like a huge label at one time, and we're still really big toward the end as well.
Mhm.
Um, I think artists still now, as opposed to maybe like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the artists still have a little bit more control than they used to. I would say, at least in the rock world. Like
Okay.
with
Mhm.
Wind Up, they were pretty open minded to like what they wanted us to do, who we wanted to tour with, you know, stuff like that.
Mhm.
That was my experience at least. And I think now since the record industry is changing so much, um, I think it's that type of approach is more common, I would say,
No
Okay.
question.
as opposed to like, you know, in the 2000s when they were going, yeah, you're covering this and you're doing that and that,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So
sure.
Sure.
Mm.
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
So Sammy, no one knows what's going to happen. Nobody really knows what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever. As an artist and as somebody that this is your business and not just your hobby,
right.
how do you even balance what you're going to do next? I know you're a musician, you write music, you record music. That's only going to sustain you for so long, and it's not going to sustain you financially. It'll sustain the creativity, but how do you temper the waiting game that everybody's in with, actually making a plan
Make a living.
that will go next, that you'll go to next,
Yeah, that's a little bit. It's pretty interesting, you know, not being able to plan super far ahead. You know, like everybody's hoping to go back out on the road next year, but
Sure.
nobody really knows if that's. I'd be surprised. At least early, there's not going to be much going on until later in the year at the
Right.
earliest, I think. But for me, like I feel really lucky because as a guitar player, there's kind of like a lot of different avenues you can take to make a living. You know, like I'm really lucky. Like I teach online just from putting music out. I've gotten a lot of students online, you know, so I can spend some time doing that. Um, I spend a lot of time doing session work and playing with other artists, which is really cool. you kind of have to do a lot of different things as a musician. Like if anybody out there that's listening to this and, you know, is aspiring to kind of, you know, do it themselves, that would be my advice. Like no matter how big you get or your band gets or whatever, you'd always kind of have to be looking for different avenues to keep going, you know?
Right.
But yeah, it's just one of those things, you know. I'm like, you know, I live alone. I'm a single guy, so it's a little bit easier. But for some of my friends that have families and stuff, yeah, I mean, you have to always be searching for, you know, what's next.
Right.
But I feel I'm in a pretty good spot now. So
Nice.
Well, if I was given advice, I'd say don't, because it's
don't get into music.
Yeah, it's way
Yeah.
too risky these days, man. And it's just for a million reasons. It just seems like it's such a hard business now. You know, it seems like to get to that point of the reward, it's almost 100% luck now, where back in the day it was maybe 80% luck and 20% talent. It's almost like the talent piece is just kind of dissipated now, and it's just sheer luck.
Yeah, there is such thing as luck. You know, there's quotes. I think Steve Jordan said it. I don't know if you guys, it seems like you guys are big studio guys, so I'm sure you love Steve Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you know, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, or when
Right.
preparation.
Mhm.
And I think my advice, you know, I get asked that a lot. Like, you know, should I have a backup plan? You know, I really want to be a musician, but should I have a backup plan? You know, and for me, like, I'm somebody who's definitely struggled. You know, it has not been the easiest road. You know, being a musician is not the easiest thing in the world. You know, everybody goes through hard times. But I would say you really have to devote your life to it. So I say don't get a backup plan, because that's what you're going to end up with, you know. Being a musician, it's your life, you know. It's not necessarily a choice, you know. It's the way you see the world, you know. So everybody's path is different, and I think a big thing is just listen to your heart and trust your gut, you know. And most of the time, if you do that, you'll make the right choices.
There you go. Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, Sammy, the new record, it is called Kingdom of the Sun. It is it's a fantastic listen for anybody that is into A, instrumental music, and B, something with an edge to it. We'll leave it there. It's definitely much more edgy than a lot of the noodle stuff that most people think of when they think of it. So,
It's true.
So-
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Mhm.
Thank you so
Sammy,
much.
yeah, and thank you for coming on, man. We
Yeah.
really appreciate you taking a little time to talk with us here at Aftershocks.
No, thanks for chatting. This is a real honor, man. Thanks for checking out the record and listening to it. It really means a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
All right,
appreciate it,
Thanks,
guys.
Sammy. All right.
Yeah,
Take care,
cheers,
buddy.
guys. Thank you.
Take care, man. Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.